get it started. Yep. This is a Army tie, not a Steelers tie. There's already been one mistake made about that this morning.
Amen.
I think the Army had this first. I'm not sure.
Good possibility.
I want to make sure that there's no confusion about that, Sister Kathy. Me and Brother Cletus were having a conversation outside about birthdays and how you get to the certain point where you're like, I don't even want to hear the word birthday. I don't want to party. I don't want nothing for my birthday. I don't want nothing. And then you wake up, and I don't care how old you are, it's your birthday. You get up and you walk downstairs, and you're looking for a little card. You're looking for a little note. You're looking for a little something, you know? And you get disappointed when you don't see it. Yeah, I don't care what you say.
I'm smart when it comes to my birthday. I remind people my birthday's coming up. And then I don't ask for things that cost money. I ask for cookies, cake. If it's food, I'll be happy with it.
That is pretty
And just so
smart.
y'all know, my birthday's coming up. June 29th is my birthday.
Yeah.
I usually like money, you know,
Hey, you can't go wrong with
I
money.
kinda like money too. I come in and there's a little card and it's got a good sized bill, $1 I don't want it, you know.
Well, if any of you haven't checked the pictures on Facebook, my wife gets pretty into her kids' birthdays. And there's two things that happen on every birthday. One, she is a pretty good artist with cake. So she'll make a cake into whatever they want it to be. And she decorates it all up, and she does pretty good at that. I post some of the pictures of the cakes that she's making. She's pretty good at it. And then they get the dinner that they choose. Whatever they want, that's what they eat on their birthday. And so she looks at me and she's like, well, so what do you want for your birthday? I'm like, nothing. And I go through the whole routine of being obstinate and hard-headed and, you know, and all that. I don't want nothing. And then it dawns on me, and I don't know if I'm happy or sad that Sister Carol isn't here, but I decided I was going to make my own coat with many colors. And for those of you that don't know what that is, that's sugar-free cake with sugar-free Jell-O with sugar-free Cool Whip.
It's good.
And it is good. At least Sister Carol's is good. I ate, last night I had like 3 helpings of that stuff. It was good. And so that's my cake. My wife doesn't have to make that, but she's going to make a steak and a big fat baked potato. And everybody else is going to, I told Randy everybody else is having steakums because that's what she wants. So they'll have steakums and I'll have steak, and I think that's a pretty good trade-off for a birthday. All right.
Tomorrow your birthday?
What?
Is your birthday tomorrow?
It's today.
Oh, today?
Yeah.
Oh, I saw this.
And how old are you, brother?
I am 43.
43.
Yeah.
Happy birthday.
I am younger than the pastor. Still. Even though today is my birthday.
Your card that I gave you.
Yeah. Hey, JD, bring up my birthday card. This was funny. I laughed right away. Bring up the card, because this is first of all, it's like Randy wrote it. Yep, that's it. Bring that up there. It's like he wrote it. And the second, it was like it was written just for me. It was. Remember birthdays when you were still, then actually we were talking about this too, outside. When you were still a kid and you shoved like 10 slices of pizza into your mouth, followed it up with soda pop and candy and tons of cake and ice cream, and spent the rest of the night bouncing off walls in a sugar-induced frenzy. Remember how much fun that was? Well, that ship has sailed. Now sit down before you fall down. Yeah, have a happy birthday. That was funny. Because if I ate all that sugar, I'd fall out. Gotta appreciate a good birthday card. All right, the book of Genesis. We have been talking about recently the creation of man and some of the foundational things that we should take away from that. We, in review, the book of Genesis meaning beginning or origin, we believe it was written between 1446 to 1406, the 40-year period while the Israelites were in the wilderness. It's a foundational, as we have been discovering in the verses, that it's a foundational book, that if we can understand it, we can understand the rest of the Bible. Chapters 1 through 12 are foundational events: creation, the fall, the flood, and the nations. And then chapters 12 through 50 are foundational people. We talked about God in His creation, the 6 days. We talked about rest on the 7th day and what that means to us, what it should mean to us. We talked about how when God created man and woman, that He actually laid the foundation for marriage, and that it is to be between a man and a woman. We talked about the breath of life that He breathed into man and how that was the spirit and the soul, and that without it man would have no life at all. And then by the end of the second chapter, we saw that it was abundantly clear what God's intent was as far as relationships between a male and a female. And last week we talked about the creation of woman and more about marriage, divorce, sin, and what God intended for man and woman in a marriage. We ended chapter 2 last week, so we're going to start with chapter 3 and verse 1. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And he had said unto the woman, Yea, hath God said, Ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said unto the serpent, We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God hath said, Ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest you die. Our word study is serpent, Nahash, and it means snake or serpent. Subtle, Headroom, and it means subtle, shrewd, crafty, sly, and sensible, and the other, prudent. That's going to come into play, the word prudent. Yea is off, and it means also, though, furthermore, and indeed. Eat means to devour, and it's a cow is the original Hebrew, and it means to devour, to feast, to eat. Fruit. The original Greek Hebrew is peri, and it means fruit or produce. It talks about offspring. Remember when God created the trees and all of the earth, that He had already put things on the planet that were already instantly fruitful, so that when He created man, that he could eat immediately. He didn't need to wait for things to grow over the summer. And that when He did that, he said that these things would grow in their own likeness. So when we see the Hebrew word and you see how can it mean offspring, well, fruit it produces its own offspring. The seeds that are contained inside is what's going to bring the next orange. So that's how you get offspring and children. Touch, the original Hebrew is naga, and it means to touch, reach, or strike. And to die is muth, and it means to die, kill, or have one executed. So we notice that Moses, because we've always understood that the serpent was Satan, or is Satan, but we notice that as Moses tells us the story, he does not refer to the serpent as the devil. This is a conversation between the serpent and Eve. And we read throughout the Bible, in places like 2 Corinthians in chapter 11 and book of Revelations in chapter 20, that in many places, as the Bible refers to Satan, he refers to him as the old serpent. So, because he was there before man, Satan was kicked out of heaven before man was even created. So we have to, he's the old serpent, and he's beguiling Eve in their conversation. We have to talk about how the flood, has re-altered the face of the earth, which would make finding the Garden of Eden impossible. And we will see scriptures to come that the serpent is going to get punished. Now I bring this up because there's things that we have in our head when we read that might prohibit us from having a full understanding of what we're reading. When we talk about the serpent, what's the first image that comes to your head?
Snake.
A snake. In the way that we have seen a snake. Okay? But we know at the time that Eve is talking to the serpent, that serpent didn't look like a snake. Because a part of the punishment is that that snake will crawl around on the ground for the rest of its days and eat the dust of the earth. So one may ask, how can you have a conversation with a snake, and how can a snake talk to a human being and understand? How can, calling into question this very story? And the first thing that we have to understand is we don't know what that serpent looked like. We understand that in this verse, in the very first verse that we read today, the serpent was more subtle than any other beast. And in our word study of the word subtle, we find out that means sly and sensible, crafty, and prudent. Now, prudent infers some form of intelligence. The serpent wasn't stupid. He may not have a mind after his punishment, but what we're trying, you have to let go of the picture that you have of a snake today and allow the Bible to put this picture in your head for you as you're reading this story. Okay? Satan was the most beautiful of all angels. One of the pictures that we have in our head of Satan today is what?
Pitchfork red.
Pitchfork, red, got horns. He's got this ugly tail that falls behind him. When we think about Satan, very rarely do we ever stop to think he was the most beautiful of all angels. He was also the most powerful of all angels, and he had the most important job of all angels. He was the one charged with guarding God's throne, no other angel. Which is something that we would be wise to remember, because we have said it 100 times. Never underestimate the power of God or of Satan. We're so willing to accept the fact that we should never underestimate the power of God. God knows where we are. He knows what we're thinking. He knows what we're doing. Doesn't matter if nobody else on the face of the planet knows something that we know. If we're the only person walking upright on the face of the earth that knows it, you better believe God knows it. Now, why is it so hard to give the same kind of credit to Satan? Because Satan is a powerful angel. And if you can do that, then understand what's going on here. Eve was not afraid. First of all, let us not forget that until they fell, both Adam and Eve had no idea what wrong was. They didn't know what a lie was. They didn't know what fraud was. They didn't know what a con artist looked like. And basically they had no reason to doubt. Doubt what? Everything is the truth. So she's having a conversation with the serpent, who is probably not all that ugly of an animal and looks like who knows what. Go ahead.
I was just thinking about what you had just said just a few seconds ago, and it strikes me that that's one of the things that they did not know all those things you said, but if they'd have just done what God told them to do, they wouldn't have fallen prey to that. Well, I think the same thing even today.
Yeah.
There are some things that we know better not to, that can't fool us, but he's
Just checking.
still the devil's still powerful and he's still doing what he's doing. And the only battle that we really can have to not have him hurt us or put us in a bad way is to just do what God tells us to do. It's never been, it was the same back then as it is now. You can't control all things, and you're not going to realize all the time when the devil's come to attack you, but if you're in God's will, you'll be okay.
I hope.
Can I say something?
Sure, absolutely, bro.
Commentary down here on that says, the serpent Satan tempted Eve by getting her, putting this in her mind, this doubt in her mind that doubt of God's goodness. She suggested to her that God was strict, stingy, and selfish for not wanting Eve to share his knowledge of good and evil.
Two things that I... Go ahead. You were going to finish?
No,
There's two things that I hope that we get to today. Well, one thing I hope we get to today. One thing is I hope I never get away from the premise that the lessons we learn from the Bible about what God expects of us is no different and is easy to relate to as parents because it is the same relationship with our children. Now, I'm here to tell you that, and he wasn't able to make it today because he's not feeling well today, my son, but the boy is notorious for taking a directive that I give him and adding things to it. And then when he's done, I ask him, but is that what I asked you to do? I didn't want you to do the extra. My request was specific. Why did you feel like you needed to do all this other stuff? Very rarely does he not do what I ask him to do. My problem with him is he doesn't do what I ask him to do. He does a whole bunch more, which means now I have to undo all of that. So I don't know which frustration is worse. However, what's the difference? God gives us, in His Word, He has given us His instruction. We mess that up. We misinterpret it. We ignore. We just mess that up. That's us. And I think that that's one of the hardest things to make somebody who doesn't want to believe in Jesus Christ or doesn't believe in God. When you're trying to convince somebody that this is real, they can't understand how God could be perfect because we have so abundantly messed this up. And I forget what the second thing was. I do hope that we get to this because what Brother Cletus said, this is craftiness. Moses is telling us that the serpent is prudent. He's wise. And he's very crafty. And one of the things that we're going to discuss, and I hope it doesn't cause a gender war in our church, but was Adam present when the serpent was talking to Eve? It doesn't necessarily say that he was. It doesn't say that he wasn't. We know that once they get to eating the fruit, that they're together. But the serpent is having a conversation here. And he's at work. And the funny thing is that he's still at work in 2013. And you know what? He's still working the same way. Because ever since Eve, it has worked. If we will believe nonsense and not do what we're told, why change his methods? He will put people in your path to divide us. Now, the serpent, I got to get back on my notes because that had nothing to do with my notes. The serpent was very wise, and we know that Lucifer was too. I'm willing to consider here that because that Adam and Eve didn't know anything about evil stuff. I'm willing to believe that the serpent was an attractive animal. Something that didn't really strike any fear in her. something that brought some comfort to her, for her to stand there and have a conversation and not flee. I don't know what the serpent looked like before it was punished. I do know that Moses tells me that God told him that the serpent was the most subtle of all animals. And I believe that the animal, the serpent, was non-threatening. What is significant here, and we're going to get into this now as one of the things, is what is significant about the tempter, the serpent, Satan, in this scenario, being the serpent? Why did he choose a serpent?
Well, he says he was the more subtle than any of the animals, any of the other, what do you say here? He was more subtle.
I'm going even more in general than that, brother. In the battles that we fight today, 2013, we have human beings out there. You want to call it possessed, call it possessed. If you want to call it under the influence, call it under the influence of Satan. That's fine. Let us not forget that until this moment, Adam and Eve were created by God, specifically. There was no evil in them. Satan couldn't get into them. He couldn't use either one of them. He couldn't pit one against the other by using the other. He had to use something else. He had to be outside, is what I'm saying. Because until the fallen state, Adam and Eve were perfect. There was no sin. They were perfect. Look at Adam and Eve like Jesus Christ. Satan couldn't get inside. He tempted Jesus from the outside using many different things. Same thing with Eve. The snake couldn't use Adam to get to Eve, and the snake couldn't use Eve to get to Adam. So he used the snake to get to Eve. Okay? So that's the first thing. We have to understand that the reason this is coming about is because Adam and Eve were perfect. They were perfectly constructed, they were perfect in the spirit, and they lived in a perfect place. Everything was perfect. Until. So we see that. And we need to also look at this too. The serpent was talking to whom? Woman. Now, in telling a story, if Adam was there, where it says, the serpent, and he said unto the woman, he could say, he said unto them, if they were both there. Could say Adam and Eve, if they were both there. But we are starting off this conversation by being told that, and he said unto the woman. And then Eve was the only one who responded. Because it says, and the woman said. Now, I'm not Adam, and I wasn't there. But if I'm there with my wife, and somebody approaches her and asks her to engage in a criminal activity, and I'm standing right there, and I know that it's a criminal activity in my mind, I ain't going to give her the opportunity to answer. I will answer for her. And let the person trying to coerce her into illegal activity know we are not going to be participating in that. So, I am obviously of the belief that Adam was not there when this conversation was taking place. Which is important in and of itself.
Now,
Go ahead.
I also,
never,
you want to go?
let me get ahead of, I'm going to get ahead of you just a little bit.
Okay.
Verse 6 says he was there.
Right. Okay.
That's all I want to say. It says he was there with her.
Right.
I agree that while the talking was going on, that he was not in close enough proximity to actually hear the conversation going on, because I also believe it was from the very beginning, he was known to, and by God, was made the head of the group
Yeah.
there. She was there to be a helpmeet. She, all the way up through this time, she worked through Adam as the head of the family.
Yeah.
And for the same thing you said, if that was the case, what all of a sudden changed, or why all of a sudden did he just allow everything to work through her then at that point? I believe that he was, when it says what he's talking about, that he was there, that means that he was in some proximity. But I don't believe that it means that he was right next to her during that conversation was going on.
Says he was there with her.
Right. Well, we're going to keep on pointing out during the conversation. This isn't the only point I've got. That's why I'm bringing up the point. That's why we're discussing it. Moving on to verse 4, 5, and 6. And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die. Ye shall not surely die. Notice it doesn't say you all
Well,
shall not surely die.
well, he just made God out a liar. He told her, said, your God's a liar.
Yeah. Just pointing it out. For God doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof, and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat. Now, let's get into it. Evil. I can't do the tongue roll, but that's what it is. Ra, and it means bad, evil, disagreeable, malignant, unpleasant, displeasing, sad, unhappy. Husband is Ish. If you remember, we're going to revisit. Let's just take a second and revisit the root Hebrew word for wife is Isha. So the husband is Ish, male, female. While now, and basically that's the wordplay. We've discussed a lot of the words, wordplay, not wordplay, word study. We've discussed the majority of the words in there before. So we see here that there was a conversation with Eve, and we still, until the end of verse 6, when they actually partake in the eating of the fruit, we see no conversation with man. We just see that she had the fruit and she gave it to him. So let's keep on going. 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 14. And Adam was not deceived, but the woman being deceived was the transgression. If man and woman were there together, the serpent would have to... Now, just understand this. Where Randy is talking about the garden is only going to be so big. He gave God gave Adam the helpmeet, so she's going to be around. They're going to be together in some form of proximity. But this conversation that is going on, not talking about the partaking of the eating, I'm talking about the conversation, is between the serpent and the woman, and the man is not there. Why do you think that is? Because the serpent then would have to convince two people, instead of convincing just one. The serpent is dividing and then conquering. If he's putting it in the doubt of one, then she can go back and now it's 2 against 1 instead of 1 against 2. He just doubled his odds of success. Yeah.
May I also point out that you said in 1 Timothy 2:14, it said what again?
Paul is talking about Adam was not deceived.
Okay.
The woman was deceived. Now, go ahead. You're going to get ahead of me now
And
too.
that being said, see, what the deal is that's another, and that's why you put that scripture in there, and I knew you were going to go to that scripture, because that's another reason to say why Adam was not there during the conversation, because it says that she was deceived. Who was it that deceived Adam? It was not the serpent. He ate of the fruit.
Yeah.
Because his helpmeet, who had always been right for him and always done good for him that God sent him, gave it to him. And he never had anything to question about not eating the fruit at that time. 1 Timothy 2:14, if Adam was there, then he also would have been said in 2:14 that he was deceived as well. And it doesn't say that.
Right. Now, here's the only thing that I have to say about that. And because, again, we're getting ahead. And I don't really want to get ahead. So I'm going to not answer you right now.
I don't need an answer.
Okay, so I'm going to stick to my agenda, no matter how much you want to derail me. All right. So I'm going to continue on. If man and woman were there together, the serpent would have had to have convinced both of them that it was okay to eat from the tree that God had expressly told them not to eat from. He would have had to convince them both. And I agree with what the pastor's saying. If Adam was there, then Adam would have been deceived. And it would have been Adam and Eve were deceived. Which is yet, and I want to take this because of the way I'm describing this, is he used one vessel to destroy two vessels. This is another foundational lesson about marriage that we cannot escape from. You're a team. There has to be a team captain, somebody who's going to break the ties and do what you have to do when it comes time to do what you got to do. We know that we're charged by God as men to be that tiebreaker. Okay? But a marriage is a team. And when you let Satan get his foot in, then the next thing you know is he moves a little bit further in. And then he moves a little bit further in. And, and maybe it just starts off with some contempt. You go to bed, you didn't say goodnight or I love you or nothing. It starts off as that. You don't bury your issues before you go to bed. Be angry and sin not. Let not the sun go down upon your wrath. That means fix it before you go to bed. Make it right. And don't sin. But we see here, Adam and Eve, and we see the devil is working on one partner, Eve. And he is going to separate the two of them. He's going to cause problems. And that's the way it works today. Whether it's the man or the woman, whatever, Satan knows what your weakness is. Do not underestimate him. He knows what your weakness is.
He can undermine,
And
if he can undermine the foundation of anything, the house will fall.
none of us are Adam and Eve. Which is to say none of us are perfect. And he messed them up. And they were perfect. You are not perfect. Do you really think that he can't mess you up? He will mess you up. He will find out what your weakness is. He already knows what your weakness is. And he'll play upon it. You have to be strong. Why do we have to stay in the Word? Why is it that, we can sit around and talk about the fact that you don't have to be in church to get saved? You don't have to go to church a day in your life and you can still go to heaven. All you got to do is read the book and believe with all your heart and stay away from a sinful life. Now, problem is, that's hard. That's why you come to church. That's why you do read the Bible. That's why you have a Christian family. That's why you share each other's phone numbers. And when you're having that moment of weakness, you pick up the phone and you say, brother, I'm having a bad day. Sister, you've got no idea. And we're supposed to be there for each other. Right. Eve didn't have anybody to call. She didn't have a church. But she was also perfect until. So if Satan can use a serpent to get in the middle and mess perfectness up, he can completely destroy us that are not perfect. If we are not on our guard. That's my phone from back there, brother. I love my Celtic tongue. So anyway, moving on. When I studied the commentary on this, I'm even going to suggest to you that there was a period of time that elapsed from the conversation until when they ate. Okay? So not only am I going to suggest that Adam and Eve wasn't there, that Adam wasn't at the conversation, maybe he was no further than the front door, but he was not in the conversation. Eve was here having a conversation with the serpent. But then something happened where a period of time elapsed. What that period of time looks like, I have no idea. But I know there was a period of time where Eve did some things. Eve made some observations. Eve noticed that the fruit was good for food. A lot of experts would say to you that she might have stood there and stared at the fruit, and it looked fantastic to her. Just because man was told they couldn't eat of it doesn't mean that it didn't provide food for animals. Perhaps she was watching an animal eat it, and it looked good. Can I suggest to you to think about when you eat a meal, does it or does it not, is it or is it not more of an enjoyable experience when you start off, the plate looks fantastic.
It's a wonderful experience.
When that plate
Yep.
looks
Preach it, brother.
like it, when it's got its little orange slice flowerets, or the parsley that's on the side, when everything has its place and it's just, the plate is wiped clean around it, there's no slop, it just looks good. Your mouth starts watering before you put it in your mouth. I'm imagining, according, and this isn't just one commentary, I've read this from several different people and I started to really think about it. The snake is telling her this. She's ingesting the information that the serpent just told her. Then perhaps she walks, maybe she wasn't even at the tree. And she walks over to the tree and she's looking at it. And the fruit looks really good. Most fruit looks good anyway. I mean, a red, shiny apple, it's kind of inviting. Nice stack of grapes, all nice and full. That looks good. Doesn't tell us what kind of fruit it is, Brother Harry. It's just fruit. But we know it looked good. It looked good for food. Which the for food part is is interpreted that perhaps she was watching something eat it. A deer. Who knows? But all of a sudden, whatever it was, she's sitting there watching that take place, and it's empowering the words that the serpent put into her head.
Temptation.
That's right. Okay? So now we have the words, the doubt, as Brother Cleves said, has been put into our brain. Now our eyes are seeing pleasure.
She looked, she took, and she gave.
Yeah.
Temptation. She said it looks good, it tastes good, very good, and I'm going to give it to my husband because of the temptation that the devil had already put in her mind.
Yep. She coveted it. In the process of seeing whatever it was she was seeing, she felt covetousness. She wanted it. She started to desire it. And isn't that the way that it goes? Just like Brother Cletus says. The devil has been doing this since the book of Genesis.
Said looking is the first step towards.
You know why? You know why men get in as much trouble as they do? Because we're visual creatures. Everybody knows that. Our eyes dictate that to us. And man, that's why a woman could be the biggest wedge between a marriage. And Satan knows that. Because we are visual creatures. First we see it, then we start to desire it, and then we take it, and then we fall. It's been the same process since the Garden of Eden, and it's been successful. And it's why it does it. Now, that lust doesn't have to be for flesh, it could be for money. Because, you know what, a mansion looks nice too. Diamonds look good too. Nice speedboat looks good too. A 4-door extended Chevy dual axle electric blue truck is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life.
Doesn't the Bible say somewhere Paul said,
That's a hint, brother, what I want for my birthday.
lust, when it is is conceived, brings forth sin.
Sin brings forth.
Sin, when it is finished, brings forth death.
So she desired it, she coveted it, she wanted it. All of these observations, and no mention of Adam sharing them with her. Another, it doesn't say that even Adam saw it, that it was good for food. I mean, surely if he was there with this bride, he would be included in this journey. He would have observations too. So again, he is not included in any of this. So she took of it, not they, but she. Which we could say, again, it's not just about what is there. It's about what's not there. We're talking in the singular throughout this whole conversation. She. Not he and she and not they. She. So I would suggest that he's not even there. Now we're going to see in the next few verses, we'll also speak to about who was there. It is important that there's a foundation here about how Satan works. Eve was new. And another thing, you know, Adam had named all of the animals. Adam had been there for a minute on the earth in Eden. Eve was a relatively newcomer out of the side of Adam. Perhaps Satan considered of the two, we'll work on the weakest link. She hasn't had as many conversations with God as Adam has.
You think Adam named the serpent? God said he named everything, so you think he named the serpent?
He's probably seen the serpent.
That is
Again, the serpent isn't declared here as the devil in any of the stories. What we're seeing here is that the devil is using the serpent.
Yeah.
He chose that. He could have chosen a cow.
We picture a serpent. We picture a serpent as a snake.
We do. I don't know what that looks like.
It could have been, for as much as we know, it could have been any type of
And the
lizard.
serpent was more subtle than any of the others. He
Right.
was more cunning
Right.
than any of the others.
Right.
So that's why
And because
Satan
once,
used it.
just like I used the analogy with the flood. Once the flood came and it kind of did what it did to the face of the earth, we're a little lost as to where Eden exactly is. Well, once God punished the serpent, we're a little lost as to what the serpent looked like. I don't think anything you do is going to be speculation as to what that serpent was before he was punished. Because God changed some things about that serpent. Apparently, the serpent didn't slither around before he was punished. Because that was the punishment. So there was something different about the serpent beforehand. But it doesn't tell us what that is. I mean, if it doesn't seem like a very good punishment to ground somebody who can't go anywhere anyway. Why am I going to make you go around on your belly for the rest of your life when you're already doing that? It's not much of a punishment. So anyway, so the devil picks the smallest cracks in the armor and exploits them. That's the point that I'm trying to make here. Our salvation doesn't depend on whether we believe whether Adam was there or not. Our present day sinful nature is upon us whether he was or he wasn't. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that we take some time and we try to read the scripture with some insightfulness. These arguments are great to have, but I believe you simply argue based on your gender. You know, hey, some people want to say, well, he was there because, you know, there's no way it could be Eve's fault. Eve was a woman. And then there's the whole male thing. Well, you know, Adam didn't have nothing to do with it. The woman lied to him. You know what the point is? The point is that inevitably they both fell.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, in chapter 2, verse 17, it says, thou shalt not eat of it, for in the day that thou eatest thereof, thou shalt surely die. So Adam knew,
He knew he wasn't supposed to eat it.
right, he
Right.
knew not to, but Eve tricked him into it.
Right.
But did he know what?
Because the serpent-
I don't know. See, now here comes the question. Did he know?
Tricked him.
Did he know that it was the fruit from that particular tree?
Well, because it says specifically commanded the man in 16. So I think he knew.
I think he knew too, because here's the thing. And we'll get into this because it's 10:50 already. Next Sunday, yeah, where'd that go? That was a quick hour. But there's a lot to be said from Adam's reaction and his response to God. You see, guilty people, they react a certain kind of way. It ain't the same for everybody because everybody's different. But in general, guilty people act the same way. And we're going to talk about that next week.
They reacted to a situation that looked better to them.
What do you mean?
When they partook of the food, they acted, and they were told not to, but they act to a situation that looked better to them.
It looked better to them.
Well, I'm talking about when Adam gave his reasons to God as to why he ate that fruit. That was a telltale sign that he knew what he was doing.
Oh, yeah.
Keep in mind too, and you've repeated it several times over, even after Eve took of the fruit and partake of it herself, at that point, Adam was still perfect,
Yeah.
which would tell me that in a perfect state, if that was the case, he would have known what she was given.
Oh, yeah.
Because he was still in a perfect state until he took it.
There's no way that you could believe that here's this tree, don't eat of it, that you didn't know what that looked like. There's no way.
And it was obviously something that he never had before. That'd been like somebody trying to offer me something that I've never ate before.
Like we always talk about, well, what was the fruit? The apple? They ate the apple, right? I mean, that's pretty much what everybody assumes, okay? So let's say that just for the sake of this illustration, that the tree that they were not supposed to eat from was an apple tree. And so they've been eating pears and oranges and grapes and all of this stuff, and then all of a sudden, she hands me the apple. I have to know that I'm not supposed to eat that. I mean, I want to, look, I want to be right. I'm not going to be 100% right, but of all the concerns that I have in the world is that I can be as right as possible. And that includes understanding what I'm reading. Okay? Now, I'm understanding it. I'm reading what everybody else's opinion is. I don't believe Adam was there during the conversation. I don't believe that, and I believe that was intentional. I believe that Satan didn't want him there. Because if he was there wouldn't have been a conversation with Eve. If Adam was perfect, he'd have stepped in and said, "Excuse me? You want us to do what?" You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, Adam not being there was a part of the plan of Satan. Don't think Satan doesn't have a plan.
That's what he does. He will do what he separate.
He divide and then conquer. And believe me, he conquered Adam and Eve with the eating of fruit. Go ahead, Bruce.
Also, it seemed she ate of it first, right?
Yeah.
According to what it says.
Yeah.
But she didn't realize that she was naked and everything until he had ate of it with her. Then
Right.
they both realized it.
Right?
So I don't know if it just seems like there was a gap there where she should have realized when she ate of it, hey, I'm naked, I don't know if I should give this to him or not, or what.
Well, does it say
Well, just so you know,
they ate together?
yeah, but she handed it to him. She bit first, and then she handed it to him, and he ate of it. And it was a matter of that was a matter of probably 5 seconds, whatever. But I'm going to say this: I believe, because I believe in my God and what I believe, he knew that was going to happen. And the consequence of eating the fruit came upon them simultaneously. He just waited for them to get done, both of them doing what he already knew they were going to do.
That was the first free will choice. He wanted it to
Yeah.
be free
Well,
will.
they were both guilty because they lied. Adam lied to God, and then Eve turned around and lied.
Not only did he lie to God, he blamed God.
Yeah.
So, and we're going to get into that next Sunday. It is 10:55. It's okay if you go over a few minutes on Pastor. It's all right. Take your time.
Go ahead and take a break. 11 o'clock, we'll start again.
All
I
got something I want to show your wife. I want her to do something for me.
Okay. Hear that? Look at her. Step out here, I reckon.
I'll bring it in.
Okay.
Mom, I want to put more sugar in it. Mom, I want to put more sugar in it. I said double sugar and it's not good.
Hello there, how you doing? How are you? Good, thank you.
Hi, Graham. Here.
I wear these and keep
Hi,
my feet
how are you?
not gonna fall with us.
Hi. Good morning. Good morning, guys. Hi.
Hi, honey.
Well, and alternate,
Who's this?
My boyfriend Lucy.
first they both fell eventually. It's like saying the first guy in the scene was worse than me today. No different.
Right, that'll be the ending.
Sheila was at a
Hi, how you doing?
yard sale.
ya. It's not going to stop that.
And she
Hi, how
had
you doing? What, that's what you're looking
Nice and black.
This is a picture of me and Destiny that somebody took in 1950 and restarted today. My grandson put this on the tree. The guy saw this and he said, "Oh my, that should be in a picture book." And he took that picture and he
You know what it was?
sketched
It was double circle and Adam trusted. Yeah, that's, or you know, can you picture this?
it. I wonder if you could paint it.
Right.
Could you paint
But
it?
then was there?
That actual one, or would you want this copied and made? Would you want this one copied, or you want to paint on top of this?
No, I'd like for you to copy this, if you could.
And just add paint.
And this was mountains over here.
Even
About here, this was all mountains and green, all down here, and green. And then this was mountains that went up this way, and this was sky.
Divide and conquer. It was.
And these were
That's how that works, right?
green. She had a yellow ribbon in her hair. And I had black trousers and blue, black, and gray shirts. But I wonder if you could take and make another copy of this. I don't know how I can make another copy. I don't think I would want this copy thing.